This is UK. It has remained on the list of the most powerful countries in the world, and it is the world's sixth largest economy and the second biggest in the EU in terms of GDP. But today it is going through the worst economic crisis in its history. UK debt level has hit its highest since 1961, and its economy grew by only 0.1% in 2023. Not only this, UK will be the worst performing economy in the G7 countries by 2025 according to reports. With the added pressures of the COVID-19 pandemic, rising interest rates, and rampant inflation, the UK's once thriving economy is now on its knees, raising serious questions about the cost of living and affordability. Now the question arises, what has brought this economic giant to the brink of crisis? Why does nobody want to live in the UK anymore? Let's explore what the main reasons are behind it.
Bring down this failed project
inside the EU than out on our own.
The economy of the UK is a highly developed social market economy. The UK was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. A brief historical analysis shows that Britain welcomed the process of change from agrarian and handicraft to an industrialized economy after the Industrial Revolution. Since then, the UK's economy has been highly powerful, independent, developed, and a global market economy. It witnessed significant impacts after World War II, but since its inclusion in the European Union, Britain has seen an upward economic trend. The manufacturing sector accounted for the rapid rise in economic growth and employment. This promised an improvement in productivity and growth in British manufacturing and industrial goods. However, the situation took a horrible turn after the 2008 global financial crisis. This financial crisis had far more far-reaching consequences for the UK as compared to other countries. Since 2010, the British economy has been sluggish, particularly under the Conservative government under David Cameron. According to reports, GDP per capita grew by just 4.3% from 2007 to 2023. One may wonder why the UK economy has performed so poorly for the last decade. The reason is simple. Low productivity growth, which the UK has not improved for the past few years, has led to a productivity gap. This productivity gap is attributed to the low investment the UK has made as compared to other developed nations. A rise in productivity is the key element to accelerating economic growth and improving living standards. Not only this, but the UK has also lagged behind in investing in key economic and social sectors. To give you an idea, the UK's investment from 2017 to 2021 was 18% of its GDP. On the other hand, Japan invested 25%, France 23%, and the US 21% equivalent to their respective GDPs. Moving on, the UK's decision to cut away from the EU had glaring financial consequences for its economy. Brexit was the UK's decision to move away from the EU's policy framework and financial structure, but it backfired in the UK's favor. According to some independent reviews, the UK's economy is almost £140 billion smaller due to Brexit. But is the situation so bad after the UK said goodbye to the European Union in 2019? According to many British people, Brexit has impacted the economy. Two-thirds of the British people think it has damaged the economic numbers. The most important factor that contributed to the UK's poor economic numbers after Brexit was trade. There were significant trade barriers between the UK and the whole EU. According to researchers, the UK's trade industry fell considerably compared to other advanced economies. There were other negative impacts on the UK's goods exports and supply chains. Another factor in Brexit was to end the free movement of people and labour through check-free borders. But after Brexit, this free movement stopped, and so a labour shortage occurred, which impacted the UK's net migration. This contributed to the UK's economy overall because many skilled workers were denied visa-free entry. This damaged the UK's labour market, and production capacity decreased in some sectors. On top of that, the UK's burgeoning debt and tax revenue provide a dismal picture. The UK's debt has risen to a record high. Its debt burden reaches as high as 100% of its GDP. This debt burden increased at a faster rate after COVID-19. After the pandemic hit, the UK's government proposed £280 billion to counter its impacts, but most of this amount was borrowed and interest rates plummeted with each passing year. On the other hand, the energy crisis also adversely impacted the UK's economy. Energy prices soared after the war in Ukraine. The economic restrictions crippled Europe's vital access to cheap oil and gas, so the UK had to bear the brunt of this crisis. That resulted in rising energy and gas prices. According to some reports, UK households now almost pay triple the amount of energy and gas after the war in Ukraine. So due to rising energy prices, inflation rose to a peak. The rise in inflation reached as high as 11.1% in October 2022 due to strong global demand for consumer goods. That is the reason central banks were forced to ramp up interest rates. This increased the cost of servicing national debt from £40 billion to £100 billion a year. This eventually impacted the people living in the UK because the cost of living didn't match the wages. For example, if wages are not increasing at the same rate as commodity prices, then it harshly impacts the living standards of the citizens. Adding to that, high inflation also poses a challenge for mortgages and the wider property market. Why? Because it is anonymous and affects people's purchasing power. So the higher interest rates have given rise to the housing crisis in the UK. The housing crisis is one of the 5 most pressing issues Britain is facing right now. According to a Bloomberg report, housing prices have soared 70% since Conservatives took office in 2010. So this has prompted higher rent prices and reduced housing affordability. All in all, this has also reflected the UK government's failure to build homes based on population growth. Another factor adding to the woes of the UK's economy is the departure of key workers from the UK. The UK has witnessed a sharp fall in workforce participation post-Brexit. This has resulted in reduced productive capacity and eventually less economic growth. Additionally, rising unemployment was one of many reasons for people to quit the UK. The unemployment rate has risen to a huge level for the past 2 years. The unemployment rate rose to 4.4% in April 2024, and almost 1.53 million people above the age of 16 were unemployed. So this rising unemployment level also contributed to the UK's ailing economy. And it was one of the reasons people don't consider the UK their workplace destination. So in light of our discussion, it is obvious why more people do not want to work or live in the UK. But to manage economic growth and boost productivity, it is better for the UK to revise its policies. Significant steps can be taken to attract people into its workforce, and it seems to be the only way forward. What are your thoughts about it? Do you think the UK can turn things around? What do you believe are the key factors that could either save or sink the UK's economy in the coming years? Let us know in the comments section. For more such videos and hot topics, stay tuned to our channel and don't forget to subscribe.